So, how do you spot a narcissist? Now, narcissism, to be clear, exists on a spectrum. So, not everybody who exhibits these traits can be classified as having narcissistic personality disorder. However, understanding narcissistic behaviors can actually help us identify and navigate through conversations and experiences with individuals who display this. Hi, my name is Dr. Vanessa, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm a licensed mental health professional. I teach on here about different subjects that have to do with mental health topics, relationships, trauma, anxiety. So if you're interested in any of those, please consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment down below. Let's get started. So let's go through some of the core traits of narcissists, some of the common behaviors, the red flags in relationships, and I'm also going to leave you with helpful tips to protect yourself. So let's get started. So some of the core traits for narcissists include a desire or need for admiration from others. So they crave constant praise and validation from those around them. They may fish for compliments or exaggerate their achievements in order to seem better than or to receive that admiration and praise from others. Number two, and this is a pretty clear one usually, is the lack of empathy. So they struggle to recognize or genuinely care for the feelings of others. And they may consistently downplay your emotions, thoughts, or feelings, making you feel as though your feelings, thoughts, and emotions are just unimportant. Number three, there's a sense of entitlement. So they believe they deserve special treatment and or privileges. They may expect others to cater to their needs without reciprocating kindness back to them. Number four, grandiosity. Just think about an overinflated sense of importance and sense of self. So they believe themselves to be superior to others. Now, usually they may not come right out and display this, especially towards those who they want to get to like them, right? So they play the character that will best suit them for their needs. So even though they lack the empathy and feel superior to others, they may not show that dependent on the crowd that they're around. If they're trying to get their affection or their admiration or their attention or their sympathy, they may feel superior, but they won't show that. They'll be able to mask that. They can even mask the ability of showing empathy, even though they lack empathy, right? Because you can act empathetic towards others. But still, with narcissists, they do not have that trait within them. So it's a show, it's a front that they're putting on. And at the end of it, the goal is just to have their own needs met. Which leads me to number five, manipulative behavior. And they will use all kinds of tactics. You've got guilt tripping, you've got love bombing, you've got making others feel less than. There's so much I'm thinking about right now, even exerting control over other people. So they will use whatever they need to use to get whatever it is they want from other individuals without feeling guilt or remorse. That is how they're able to operate under these behaviors. Something else is that they may actually twist the facts and make you feel as though what the reality is did not happen or that you have made it up. And so that is a big one. This is similar to gaslighting tendencies, where an individual starts to question their own reality based on just consistently being around a narcissist or individuals who display behaviors as such that make them question, did I actually say that? Did I do that? Am I losing my mind? When you start to question your reality consistently because it's been questioned so many times, that's a clear sign that maybe you have experienced gaslighting or that you have experienced life with an individual who displays narcissistic personality tendencies or traits. So let's move on to some of the common behaviors. So we talked about core traits. Let's talk about some of the behaviors. So the first one is having a superficial charm about themselves. So they're often very charismatic. They appear genuine and kind, and they would give off the shirt on their back if someone needed it, right? And it meant that they were going to freeze. Now, remember how I said earlier that it is a facade, it is a mask that they're putting on. So even though inside they may feel superior towards others, they won't show that if that is not going to get them what they want, whether it's admiration, attention, for other people to be on their side. That way, by the time you come out of those situations and say, hey, this was my experience, this is what happened to me because of them, and this is what they put me through, they'll question you because what they've seen from the narcissistic individual is completely opposite. Number two, the way they handle criticism is they don't handle it very well. So with an individual who has narcissistic personality disorder or traits, but if we're just going to separate the personality disorder, it is a inferiority they feel. So they are so, you would think that someone who is a narcissist doesn't have any problem with self-esteem. It's actually the complete opposite. They struggle so much with their self-worth and self-esteem, which is part of the reason why they have to do all of this just to feel somewhat worthy. They work overtime. Because if you think about it, that versus an individual who doesn't have this disorder or who doesn't display those traits, they don't necessarily need to go through all of this wearing a mask, playing the facade, feeling superior inside, but making everybody think that woe is me and I need sympathy and I need help. Turning around and being abusive and manipulative and controlling to those behind closed doors that live with them, but going outside and treating everyone as if they are next to gold. Right? It takes a lot of time, energy, effort, input, and output to live life that way. So most people wouldn't go that far. But when you have this personality disorder, it's completely different. So we have to understand sometimes individuals who are compassionate and considerate of others, the reason why narcissists attach to those individuals is because it takes a long time for those individuals to say, you know what? I can be compassionate and understanding and forgiving, but not continue to allow individuals as such to take control over me and manipulate me and make me feel inferior and completely destroy my life. And I say destroy my life because individuals who've gotten out of toxic relationships with narcissists, it's a lot for them to get out a lot of times. But when they do, they're better for it. However, it's still difficult to live with someone like this or experience life. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's not someone you're in a relationship with, maybe it's a family member. Let's move on to number 3, which is they exploit their relationships and their friendships. So they don't see you as a friend, a partner, a child that you love dearly. No, they see you as a means to an end. Number 4, and this we see quite a bit, which is envy and belittling. So they may secretly resent others for their success. And it doesn't even have to be success. It could be them just being genuinely happy for a moment. A lot of people have described being happy for whatever reason or being just okay during the day and displaying that in front of a narcissist. And it feels like a flip has switched. And all of a sudden, somebody's picking a fight about something so random. It's not random. It's because of the jealousy and then the need to belittle others. See, you're not going to have a good time while I'm around if I'm a narcissist, right? And we're behind closed doors. So usually this happens to the people that get closest to the narcissist, right? And that they can put the facade down, right, with these individuals. When that happens, they will try to diminish that. You're not going to be happy. And if so, I'm going to pick a fight because no. But now there are times when this could be disguised, not as I'm going to pick a fight about something, but maybe they will put you down and say, oh, I'm just joking. It's just a joke. You're doing too much. Why are you overreacting? Now this happens consistently, excessively, and a lot, right? So it's not something that every once in a while happens. It's consistent and over time, and it wears you down. Number 5, and I know I keep saying this, but this is a big one, lies or exaggerations of the truth and what actually happened. So they may misrepresent the facts and what actually happened to fit their narrative. So whether that's to come off as being more successful, to impress others, or maybe to downplay what you've experienced so that you don't actually call them out on their behavior. Now let's move over to some of the red flags within relationships. Number 1, love bombing early on in the relationship or the friendship, but usually we see this in romantic relationships that are building up. So love bombing, for those of you that don't know, it is extravagant gifts, saying I love you early on, giving you the world, and you almost feel flustered because it's happening so fast, so quickly, but also at a larger scale. So usually things take time to develop, especially things like romantic relationships, right? You have friends who have been friends for years and then it turns into a romantic relationship and you're like, oh, this is kind of fast, but we've built a friendship over time, right? This is not that. This is when we meet the next day, if not 1 or 2 or 3 weeks from now, I am just giving you everything you asked for. I am moving super fast in the relationship. I'm skipping steps. And you may feel guilty about saying something because, wow, this is the first person who actually pays attention to me, who texts me back immediately, who's always calling to check in on me, who says he's never found any, or she has never found anyone like me. All of these things that you're grateful for and you want in the progression of a normal relationship, but you're getting it all. The biggest key here is that it can feel wonderful, intoxicating almost. However, there's always a flip because they are using this time that they're preparing in order to control you later on. And the reason why this is so interesting to me is because you don't notice it as a negative first. You may be cautious. You're like, wow, this is a lot, but I like this. I've been waiting for someone to treat me like this or to see me like this, right? Or they're just like that. That's how they are. Not necessarily, but you don't know that yet. And you can't blame yourself for things you don't know. That's why I like making videos like this. That way it helps educate others who just may not know, and that's okay. Now, once you get out of that love bombing phase, you'll experience something that's called blame shifting. So I want you to take notice because usually individuals with narcissistic traits or narcissistic personality disorder, they tend to blame everybody else and rarely ever take accountability because that means they would have to find fault within themselves. They're not doing that. And so if I'll give you a few tips on how you can kind of spot this, right? So if it's always somebody else's fault, it's never, yes, I know what I did and it was this, this, and that. This was my contribution. Now this is theirs, right? There's no even power of blame or taking responsibility, right? And so if you're seeing that, those are clear signs and it may seem valid, right? If someone's like, no, it wasn't me. This was my experience. I didn't do anything. They did all this. They're crazy. A lot of times it's exes, right? So he or she, they're crazy. They did all these things. I was always there for them. And you believe that because that's what they're displaying to you as well. And so you have no reason to think differently of them at the beginning, of course. How this shifts later on is that they start doing that to you. So they'll start blaming you for different things that have occurred or do occur in the relationship, despite them having a clear impact on that outcome. Does that make sense? So they'll blame you. They'll say, well, if it wasn't for you, if you didn't do this, if you did more of that, then I wouldn't. So it's always because of you, no matter what. I mean, even to the point that you're not even in the room with them. And somehow it's because of you. Now let's talk about this emotional roller coaster. So the emotional roller coaster that you may experience can be a lot. And it can go from idealizing you and you're the best thing in the world to me. You're the only thing in the world to me. You're the only one for me, to then devaluing you. It's all your fault. You are to blame. If it wasn't for you, then I would X, Y, and Z and be way better off. And then you start to question your own self, your own actions. You start to make changes to your whole lifestyle to appease and accommodate them. The fallacy is that no matter what you do, what you change, how you move differently through life, it's still never going to be good enough for them. And one thing that I need you to understand is if somebody hates themselves, truly does not like themselves, which we've just talked about earlier, those who struggle with this, they truly have a self-worth issues. They have issues within the way they view themselves. And that's why they do all this extra output, right? So if someone struggles with loving themselves, truly deep down, loving themselves, and not in a haughty way, but just in a, I'm okay, how I am, my imperfections and all. I don't think I'm better than you, but I'm also a cool person. If someone doesn't have at least that within them, and you try to love them and be there for them and love them through it all, they will end up punishing you for that. Because how can they accept something that they don't have themselves? How can they give something that they don't even possess? You're asking a narcissist, which you may or may not know that they are that, right? But you're asking someone who does not love themselves to love you back. It doesn't work that way. And so a lot of times individuals who go through this, they find themselves hitting a brick wall time after time after time. And then afterwards, once they're out of it, or once they gain some clarity, they recognize that, wow, there really was nothing that I could have done or said or moved differently that would have ever made them love me the way I love them. And again, this is not just in relationships, although we're specifically in this section talking about it. This could be a parent relationship, a parent-child dynamic. This could be a grandparent dynamic. This could be you with your child who is struggling with narcissistic traits or has been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. So this does not discriminate against color, financial status, ethnicity, location of residence, nothing. And number 4, specifically with relationships, we see gaslighting. And gaslighting, I have a full video on what that is and what that looks like right up here. I'll put it up here for you guys. Go ahead and check that out later if you're more interested in learning more like deeper dive with gaslighting. However, in this case, I need you to understand a few things. Gaslighting is when someone makes you question your reality consistently. When someone questions you, your motives, flips the narrative back on you, tells you that what happened did not happen. And this isn't one time that they do this, 2 times, maybe 5 times. No, this is consistently over time. So it's not something that is very overt and in your face. It's something that happens small, but consistently over time. And then you get to the point where you're questioning everything and changing everything about yourself. So gaslighting is actually very in depth, and I think that's another word that's thrown around a lot. But if we truly understand what it looks like and how it grows, then we can really understand what to do about it and how to resist that, which we're not perfect. There are very smart, intelligent individuals who experience life with individuals who have different personality disorders or are very good liars and manipulators and exert control, and they come out of that and they say, well, I think I'm intelligent. Why would I go through that? What I say to that is, if someone is intentionally trying to be manipulative and controlling and combative in relationships, right? You're not going into relationships thinking, I'm just going to get in a relationship with a narcissist. I'm just going to get in a relationship with a manipulative liar. No. You get into relationships because you develop feelings and emotions and connections with somebody else. So your intelligence has nothing to do with that. If somebody has set out to be a liar and a manipulator, they're working overtime to do that. That's not nothing that you should be able to spot immediately and stop that. No, we're human. We're not perfect. There are things that we experience that we can't control. And so it has nothing to do with your lack of intelligence. It's the fact that they're working overtime to be liars, manipulators, controllers, gaslighters, and or that they have those personality disorders, which is a disorder within a DSM-5. This is an actual mental health disorder that they have. And so it's not based on your level of intelligence. I want to make sure I say that. So let's go on to understanding some tips to help you navigate instances with this. So tip number 1, you have to learn how to set clear and firm boundaries. There is no question. They have to be clear and firm, because the guilt tripping, the manipulation, the control, they will use all of that to get their way. They don't care. However, for you, you have to know what your boundaries are, and you have to be firm on those. You cannot give an inch, especially to a narcissist or someone who displays those traits, because they will always want to take a mile. The other thing is to not let the feelings of guilt get to you. And even if you experience guilt, recognizing that just because I have these feelings and emotions come up does not mean that I have to change my behavior if that means that I'm going to put myself or even my loved ones in a position where they're going to experience unhealthy and toxic behaviors, right? Number 2, trust your intuition. When you've been someone who's so good at manipulating and controlling and exerting things like guilt trip and gaslighting tendencies over you, it's going to be so imperative that you learn how to develop your intuition. And sometimes you think, well, how can I trust my intuition? I'm in this situation in the first place. No. Slowly, over time, this happened. Your intuition is probably what you stopped listening to slowly over time, but because you were listening to them and their voice. Get back to understanding you as an individual, which this takes time and it is a journey. So you have to be patient with yourself, but understanding that your intuition is going to lead you in the right direction. It may not always be correct. It may not always be perfect. It's not. However, learning how to listen to that little voice inside that says, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we shouldn't go there. Or maybe we should try this instead, right? We each have that. And some people may have it, some people may not. Some people may not believe in intuition. That's fine. There's always something when you're about to make a decision that tells you, maybe I shouldn't, or maybe I should. So if you have that, learn how to listen to your intuition. Number 3, this is a big one. Avoid arguments. Narcissists love to poke until you explode, and once you explode, they sit back. They relax because this is what they wanted, especially if it's in front of other people. See, they'll do the poking behind closed doors. When you explode, they'll either record that or it'll be in front of other people, and they'll be able to immediately sit back. Sometimes it's not in front of other people, but you notice that as soon as you explode, they're good. It's almost like they're back to calmness. All of a sudden, whatever was bothering them before isn't bothering them anymore. They love that. Don't argue with a narcissist. You'll never win. They always win. Or they always switch it for their narrative. Practice staying calm. Number 4, seek support. Having a good support system is going to be so helpful because a lot of times you end up isolated based on the slow and consistent behaviors that the narcissist portrays. And so you need the support system around you, though, to tell you, hey, let's do this instead. Hey, what you're doing is not okay. It's not healthy for you. We need to get out of this, right? Someone to healthily call you out and constructively call you out when you need it. Also, therapy is going to be really helpful to understand and sort of rummage through the mix of feelings and thoughts and emotions that you may be experiencing to understand, how do I listen to my intuition? What has been lost in translation? How over the years have I lost the ability to listen to myself and make decisions for myself apart from wanting to please this person who's been toxic in my life? How do I learn to move forward in these ways? That's going to be really helpful if you go to therapy and you start to work on these things. The next one, I want you to know when to walk away. And this is going to be my last tip because it's pretty self-explanatory. There are times when it needs to be made very clear that narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health disorder, just like any other one, right? There are major, major differences, but it's still a mental health disorder. It's a disease of the mind. Therefore, you have to treat it as such. And there are times when, with those who struggle with this, you cannot have relationships, friendships, communications with them because they go back to my earlier points. It's exploitative and it's for their own personal gain. And so them understanding where you're coming from, understanding how they've hurt you, wanting to take real accountability and make changes for that, that ability is not there for them. And so and even if they do get to that point, it's something that they have to actually work on and want to work on. And for them, it is going to be a facade because that ability is not there for them. Remember earlier when I said lack of empathy? Yeah, it's really hard to understand where someone else is coming from and how you've hurt them if there's a lack of empathy to begin with, right? So a lot of times individuals have to understand that you can't have relationships with those who struggle with narcissistic personality disorder. Now I'm talking about extreme, right? I'm not talking about people who have traits of narcissistic traits, but can eventually recognize them and work on them, right? These are two different things that I'm talking about, so I don't want you to get them confused. I'm just talking about if someone has a diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. And usually most times they don't go to therapy, so they don't get this disorder, just to be clear. However, you have to understand when to walk away. Ask yourself, is this healthy for me? Is this healthy for the people around me? Have I lost everyone around me because of this relationship or friendship or whatever the case is? And what is it that I need? Am I happy? Is it a facade? Start to ask yourself those questions to understand, or at least start to evaluate when you need to walk away, what those boundaries are that you need to set, and how you want to move forward. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments and I'll try to get back to them as soon as I can. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.